We've already learned some of the basics of photosynthesis. We've learned how photosynthesis occurs in two separate sets of reactions, the light-dependent and light-independent reactions. And we've learned the chemical equation for the process of photosynthesis. We also learned that the process of photosynthesis does not take place in just one step. We don't go straight from the reactants to the products. We go from the reactants to another state, and eventually we work our way to those products of high energy sugars and oxygen, which came from water and carbon dioxide and the energy from light. Today we're going to learn about what that process is. What are those different steps that take the photosynthetic organism from taking in the reactants, again, carbon dioxide and water, taking in the light energy and turning those components into those high energy sugars and oxygen. In order to do so, we're going to explain what actually happens during the light-dependent reactions. Remember, the light-dependent reactions are those reactions that require the presence of light. That's where the photosynthetic organism absorbs the energy from light using chlorophyll, and it generates ATP from ADP. So it adds a phosphate group to ADP, which creates high energy ATP, and it forms NADPH. NADPH is formed from NADP+, and it's formed when a hydrogen ion and two high energy electrons that have absorbed the energy from light are attached to NADP+. So we have these two molecules that have a lot of energy in them because they have these high energy electrons. These are called the electron carriers. The electron carriers carry the energy to those light independent reactions. From the grana, from the thylakoids, the thylakoid membrane is where the light dependent reactions take place. And then those high energy electron carriers carry those high energy electrons to the stroma, which is where the light independent reactions take place. In the light independent reactions, we've already learned that the energy from the light dependent reactions is used to form high energy molecules of sugar, and the high energy molecule is sugar, and then oxygen is also formed as a waste product and released back into the atmosphere. We're going to identify the factors that affect photosynthesis. In this lesson, as I've described, we'll learn more about what specifically happens during the light-dependent and light-independent reactions. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the factors that affect photosynthesis. Photosynthesis involves both light-dependent and light-independent reactions. What do the light-dependent reactions produce? They produce oxygen. So even though I mentioned in the last slide that oxygen is produced as a product, it's not actually produced in the light-independent reactions. The oxygen is actually produced in the light-dependent reactions. In the light-dependent reactions, the photosynthetic organism takes in water, and then it takes in light energy, and it uses the hydrogen from the water to form that NADPH. So the H is taken away from the water, the oxygen is removed, and the oxygen goes back to the atmosphere. What is converted in the process? Well, in the process we get NADPH H that was converted from NADP+, and we have ATP that is formed from ADP. Again, to form NADPH, what we do is we add the hydrogen ions from the water, so H2O becomes O2, and then we add a phosphate group from the phosphate group is already in the chloroplast, so we add a phosphate group to the ADP to turn it into ATP. Do you recall from our last lesson where the light-dependent reactions occur? Remember, we have these fluid-filled sacs called thylakoids, and they are stacked in stacks called grana. Well, the light-dependent reactions occur in the membranes of the thylakoids. Each of these little flat sacs is called a thylakoid, and the light-dependent reactions occur on the membrane that covers the surface of the thylakoids, which are inside this larger structure called a chloroplast. And the chloroplast itself is inside the plant cell. Here is one thylakoid. Thylakoids are sac-like membranes containing most of the machinery needed to carry out light-dependent reactions. Photosystems, which are surrounded by accessory pigments, are essential to light-dependent reactions. Photosystems are the clusters of chlorophyll and proteins that exist in the thylakoids, or in the thylakoid membranes. Light absorption by photosystems is the beginning of photosynthesis. Why are most plants green? The color green is caused by the reflection of green light by the pigment chlorophyll. Pigments capture light energy during the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis. Plants have several different pigments, but the green color of chlorophyll is more intense than the other colors, and so that's why most leaves look green. If a plant looks red or orange, it's because it has larger amounts of other pigments such as carotene.